How many times have you seen people in the parking lot of your favorite box store or grocery that just didn't feel right? Maybe it was the eye contact or the way they were working the parking lot. Should you report them or mind your own business? Stop the Threat starts now. Welcome to Stop the Threat. My name is James Towle. On this week's episode, we take you to New Hampshire for an episode in which we have entitled Parking Lot Carjacking. But let me introduce you to this week's panel. Wes Doss. Wes' background includes the Arizona Sheriff's Department, Smith & Wesson Academy, SIG Arms Academy, the NRA LE Division, FEMA, and the Department of State. As well as being a Stop the Threat contributor, Wes also holds a PhD in psychology. Monica Rodriguez. Monica has had 13 years on the job as an LE officer specializing in human trafficking investigations. Monica is presently working full-time for a private foundation in logistics, special projects, and risk assessment. Lieutenant Dan Marcou, Lieutenant Dan as he's called by most, has achieved national recognition for his innovations in crowd control, defensive tactics, live fire interactive firearms training, and his famous 5 phases of the active shooter. But before we begin, Monica, tell us a little bit more about human trafficking in the United States.
Well, human trafficking is it's actually a big industry. It's second to narcotics, and it occurs internationally, but the U.S. actually happens to be one of the top destinations on human trafficking, and it also happens here locally with our own people here domestically. So they fall into human trafficking, either domestic servitude, labor trafficking, and sex trafficking. Sex trafficking being the most prominent and the most talked about.
Right. And the perception by most, Wes, about human trafficking is what?
Well, I think the perception by most is what they see in motion pictures. You know, a lot of people believe it to be this thing that occurs. Teenage girls are kidnapped and sold overseas, and they don't realize that it's gotten many different faces, many different facets, and a lot of it occurs, as Monica said, right here in the United States.
Right, and that is true. That is a perception by most. Lieutenant, have you had any experience with that at all?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I came upon a couple of women one time who had ripped off a man and stole his coin collection, and when I apprehended them, I found out that they were prostitutes. One of them was adult, and the other one had been in the business, and from the time, I believe she was 13, she was 15 at the time, and she had been a long-term runaway, but runaway is a misnomer a lot of times. They've been victimized, and it happens all over.
I've got just a few seconds, so are we winning this game?
No, not at all.
Not even close?
There's more awareness on the subject, but there still needs to a lot more needs to happen. It's a billion-dollar industry. We haven't made a lot of headway with drug trafficking either, so it's right up there with that.
Okay, and this breaks down into several different areas, as you said earlier. So, you know, I've got to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to show you part 1, and maybe we'll learn a little bit more about human trafficking as well. Don't go away. Welcome back, viewers. Before I show you part 1 of parking lot carjacking, let me just give you a little idea of what's going to take place here. We have all been somewhere where we have seen someone in a parking lot or in an open area, public area, that seems a little on the aggressive side, that may seem a little unstable. Here's part 1.
out of my car. No.
Okay, in California, the PC for that is 5150. That's an involuntary psychiatric hold if law enforcement arrives. What do they call it in Chicago?
I'm not sure about Chicago, but I can tell you Florida, it's a code 5.
What's the code 5?
Title 46.
Title 46.
5115.
5115. Okay, now we have all sort of done this. I think we've all seen people like this. Personally, if I'm sitting in my vehicle waiting for my wife, maybe shopping or something, I have the windows up and probably the air conditioner on if it's warm. But I'm not sitting there with the windows down concentrating on something else. I feel vulnerable. So yeah, that would be the first thing I saw that was wrong there. Anybody else see anything?
There's too much technology in the real world today. There's a time for it, and that wasn't a time for it. People need to get their head out of their apps, is what I like to say. When you get tunnel vision, and I see people driving like that, walking like that, and sitting like that. The fact is, it's a different world we live in.
And I think we have to accept that, LT. Right. I think that's what people do. And then we just kind of, I think once we establish the fact that that's what people do now, then we need to do it in ways that make us more comfortable and secure. Mm-hmm. I think we just have to accept that. That's what I think. Anyway, anybody got another opinion? I mean, it's out there. Kids are going to be doing it. Adults are going to be doing it. It's there. It's growing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's becoming more popular with music and games and all kinds of things you can do. So I think what we need to do is develop a pattern. If you're going to do that, and probably most of you will do that, then take a few precautions.
Right. One of the things that I've always told, specifically females, but this applies to anybody, you have to be aware of your surroundings. You're out at the mall, you're at a restaurant, it doesn't matter. You always should be aware of your surroundings. And the second that you take your mind off of that and put your head into the computer or your cell phone or your iPad, you're no longer aware of your surroundings and you're making yourself very vulnerable.
Right. You know, Wes, I would say with some confidence that because it is the way it is today, we have to do things that are going to be safer for us. And what would some of those things be?
I mean, obviously, a little bit more situational awareness, you know, putting yourself in a position, you know, parking in a location where you are a little bit more safe and secure. I mean, that's not too terribly unreasonable. I find myself doing that. I'll end up at the back of a parking lot or, you know, backing into a parking spot or someplace where I have good visibility over the rest of the parking lot. But this guy appears to be completely caught off guard when the guy jumps in the vehicle.
Right. LT?
I agree that there are positions of advantage that you can be in on a regular basis. One is to take the time to scan and process the environment around you and be in a position where if you're waiting for somebody, you can see the entire area. But to just bury yourself and become totally unaware of what's around you it's not good for today's environment. There were some things that person could have seen if he would have just, like I said, periodically up, scan, break up your tunnel vision. Just that simple.
Okay.
If I may add, also, just locking the doors. If you're going to put yourself in that position, just lock the doors and sit there. And I mean,
the whole thing would have been over.
Exactly.
He would have never got in the car.
He wouldn't be able to get in there. Correct.
Right. I mean, if the windows had been down, that's one other little possibility.
Right.
But you know, in the very short time I have, let me just throw this on the table quickly. Can you possibly say to people that if you're not in your home, the security of your home, then you need to be aware of everything going on around you? Is that what we've come to?
Well, I think that's always been the case. And I think applications on cell phones and the computers have kind of taken us away from all of that.
Okay. Well, when we come back, I'm going to show you part 2. Don't go away. It gets better. Welcome back. We have seen part 1. We've talked about some of the things that can be very helpful to you. We want to show you part 2 now because I think there's more to this story and there are plenty more comments coming up. So let's watch part 2.
get out of my car.
No.
I don't know what you're doing, but get out of my car. Have you lost your mind? Get out of my car. Fine, don't move. Hey! Hey, call the police! Call the police! What is your problem? Last chance to get out of the car.
Get your hands in the air. Get your hands where I can see them, both of you. Get your hands up. The car is completely surrounded. Driver, with your left hand, extend the gun out the window and drop it to the ground.
Okay, it didn't get any better, did it?
Well, it didn't get any worse.
Didn't get any worse, thank God, because it could have, huh?
Absolutely.
It could have gotten worse. But let me ask you this: couldn't this whole incident been prevented if, when he made his attempt to be aggressive with that lady, if she had called 911, or if she had gone into the store and said, you know, there's a guy in a... And how many of us have gone to a store where we have left our vehicle, we're walking towards a big box store, for instance, in a large parking lot, and you see someone, they've got a can in their hand, they've got a sign in their hand, or something, and you do fix your eyes on them. You do want to be aware of that person. But if you're going in the store, why wouldn't you just say to someone when you know there's someone out in the parking lot? I think the store wants to know that. I mean, if I owned the store, number one, I wouldn't want them out there unless I approved of it. And if I did approve of whatever the collection was that was taking place, I would probably have someone at the door saying, oh, yeah, they're, you know, not to worry, everything's okay, we know that person. But normally, I would think as a store owner, I'd want to know if there was somebody in the parking lot. And I think that's happened to all of us. But do we take the time to report it? That's the question.
Well, it seems like there's a reluctance still today on a lot of people's parts to actually get involved. You know,
Right.
they just, well, you know, it's not my problem. And then on top of it, there's this reluctance on people's parts to really pay attention to anything. I mean, you could say that this guy is at fault because, you know, he's potentially making himself a victim in this situation because of his lack of situational awareness. But when you go shopping, how many times do you come out of a store and you see people of all age brackets wandering around the parking lot because they can't remember where they parked their cars because they didn't pay enough attention there. So, I mean, you've just got real human things going on in this particular episode that it's just this guy just being a human being.
You know, there's an old adage that said, police are the public and the public are the police. The police are only a part of the public that are paid to do duties that are incumbent on every citizen. And we've kind of lost that there is a need to pick up the phone, and sometimes being proactive and picking up the phone can stop that snowball from come rolling down the hill, turning into an avalanche.
You got something?
No, I agree with Wes. There's still a huge reluctance on the behalf of the people to call and report that kind of thing.
Well, I think going back to what you said, there's that necessity that people to be proactive, but I think there's a reluctance there because people aren't sure what to report because we've got people that swing that pendulum in the wrong direction and report everything, and a lot of stuff is so trivial and it gets people. I mean, it gets people in trouble that don't need to be in trouble.
And that's
that's
exactly my next question. Had you been the citizen who had actually seen a person unstable approaching other people, and you had called it in, and now you're on patrol, what does dispatch say to you on patrol? What message do you get from them on this report? In other words, what information do you have to go to this location?
They're going to get a call. There's a man with a gun in the parking lot, and to that citizen's credit, he reacted properly when those officers pulled up on that scene. I mean, his reactions at that point, no matter what happened before that, probably prevented a tragedy. Now the police officers are asking me to do something, cooperate, and to his credit, he did that. But that's how that call's going to come in. Got a man with a gun.
Man with a gun. That's
But
what you're
in
gonna
addition
get.
to that, though, I think everybody that sees something like that and wants to report a suspicious incident needs to also remember, you know, clothing, description, that kind of thing, so we know who to target. Otherwise, you're just looking at a parking lot full of people.
Yeah.
Okay, so with little to no information except there's someone with a gun, when you're rolling up on that, you don't know that all you see, if you can see through the front windshield. All you really have, let's say you can't. All you know is that that car is occupied and someone has a gun. That's all the information you have. So did those officers are reacting to the fact there's an armed person there. That's all they have.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, unless the citizen, the good citizen who calls it in, stays on the phone and then describes how the situation develops. Because a lot of times what you initially see won't be the whole facts, and as it progresses, you can tell the officers, this is what's happening now. It's not a man with a gun. Apparently this guy is a mental subject, and he tried to hide, and you can add on to the situation as it goes. And if you're the person calling it in with a gun, you want to make sure you tell somebody, this is how I'm dressed, and I'm armed with a semi-automatic handgun, and so I am the good guy here.
Well, let me just ask you this. If you're the guy with the gun in the car, why not just leave the car? You got the 5150 in the front seat. Why not just leave the car? You're armed. Just step out of the car. I mean, what was wrong with that?
Well, there's a tendency to protect your property, no matter how big or how small or how valuable or how invaluable the property is. It's your property.
Yeah, I agree with that, Wes, but I'm afraid if I'm dealing this close with someone who's unstable, that this thing is going to quickly progress into a shooting incident.
Right, but when you're in the middle of it,
that's what worries me.
But when you're in the middle of it, sometimes you don't think about that. You're there. This is mine. Get out of my car. And you get locked into that pattern of behavior. Get out of my car. Get out of my car. When you could get out of the car and drag him out of the car if you wanted to.
Right. I got to go. We're going to break. We're going to run off to a commercial. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk more. Welcome back. You've seen part one and you've seen part two. I kind of want to leave everybody with something. So real quickly, if you had one thing to say to individuals in a parking lot in this situation, give me some advice quickly. Go.
Disengaging is always a tactical option you should consider.
Okay.
Well, I agree. And you've got the phone in your other hand. He was already on the phone. Call. Make the call.
Make the call.
Yeah, disengage, get away. You have an unstable subject, just move.
One other thing.
You don't have to be. You're not empowered to be law enforcement. So why be that close with a loaded gun to someone who's unstable? Get out of the car.
Not only, it's personal safety too.
Right, personal safety. Go ahead.
Finger off the trigger until you're going to shoot.
That's really good. If you have the mind to actually do that, then that'll work. But let me just go one step further here, because I have a question from Kyle in Illinois, and this is really kind of relates to this. When the officers first rolled up, they told him to drop the weapon. Now, Kyle's problem with that is, you know what, I've gone out and I've spent $500 or $600 on this gun. Are you going to allow me, let's say it's an automatic, to drop the mag, clear it, and bend down and put it on the ground? Are you okay with that? If I have a revolver, is it okay if I pop it open, drop the ammunition, and then just kind of reach down and lay it on the ground? How do I do that when law enforcement tells me, drop the gun?
If law enforcement has a gun to your face and asking you to drop the gun, just drop it. I mean, it's $600 or your life.
Well, the problem is 9 times out of 10, they're going to have, well, they should have you do something else with it besides drop it. It's a weapon of unknown origin with unknown ammo in it. You don't know whether it'll go off.
Yeah,
when
I was going to say, dropping it is almost dangerous, isn't it?
Putting it on the roof of the car, or opening the car door and putting it on the ground, or doing something, because you don't know, as a responding officer, you don't know the condition that weapon's in.
Okay. LT?
Absolutely. We train officers to take that in consideration, but when they're pumped and things are happening, drop the gun comes out, and if that's what they say, drop the gun. Any of those other actions could lead to an unwanted discharge.
Yeah, we still have to bear in mind that when law enforcement arrive, they don't know who the good guy and the bad guy is or are, so they are looking to get rid of the weapon first, and then they'll sort all that out. Now, You know, I kind of agree with Kyle. I drop it. Dropping it, one, is not safe, and number two, it's a little expensive. I don't want to do that. If I'm standing and I'm holding someone at gunpoint for you to arrive, you're going to come out, you're going to say pretty much the same thing to me. You're going to ask me to drop the gun. So are you okay with me just bending down and dropping and laying it on the ground? Is everybody okay with that?
Picture somebody, a cop, you are the police officer, and you decide to do that. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be passing that muzzle towards the officer, and in a split second, a tragedy.
Right.
Okay, well, that's a good point.
No, I 100% agree. The cops don't know who the good guy is. You just have to show them that you're the good guy.
Okay,
Even when
you're
we're the
asked.
ones that are involved in it, they don't know sometimes. As a guy who's been involved in an off-duty incident, sometimes you are the bad guy till they determine that you're one of the good guys too.
Right.
So we get dealt with the same way.
Okay, so basically, we're just going to say to you, comply with the officer and get the weapon safe as quickly as you can. Just follow his instructions.
Right.
We've got to go. I want to leave you with something that seems to work here. This was said by a poet 600 years before Christ. We do not rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. See you next week. Be safe, be trained, be alert.